Hey, look, it's doing its own thing. Let's try again.
This is my mother.
Oh, very nice to meet you. All right, so now we're ready to go. Excellent. So welcome, everybody. So who in the room has heard of Milo of Creton? You're all going to know who he is by the end of the day. So it's one of my favorite stories of persistence. Because who in the room has also, show of hands, experienced back pain in their life? Was it persistent?
Very
good.
Yes. So we're going to talk about why that happened. But Milo was around back in when Greece was around, and it was all the amazing things that Greece was happening. He's actually one of the most celebrated Greek wrestlers of all time. I think the total number was something like 28 gold medals and 60 overall championship wins. So Milo, as a young boy, was a farmer. And among the other things, the reason he is still remembered today is every day he would get up when this cow was born and pick up the cow. And day after day, he would pick up the cow, but he wouldn't just pick up the cow and put it down. He'd pick it up, put it over his shoulders, and walk around the town. So if you can imagine if somebody did that today, people in town would know who you were. They may think you were a little odd. I'm sure they thought Milo might have been a little odd too. But he did this every single day for years. Now, how fast does a little cow become a big cow? It takes less than years, right? So him picking that cow up every day, being persistent with actions to help him grow his strength, because from a young boy, he knew he wanted to be a wrestler. And how accurate the depictions of Greek wrestlers are, nobody really knows, but they were pretty big muscular people, right? So every day he picked this cow up, he walked around, so he could pick up a fully grown cow and walk around his town with it. So his persistence of action resulted in being one of the most celebrated Greek wrestlers of that time frame. Now, the reason I tell you that story is stories help us remember things. Facts are great, but how many facts do you get in the day and you just kind of move on to the next fact, right? So facts don't get people to move, stories get people to take action. So when we talk about back pain and sciatica, almost everybody in the room raised their hand, including me. There's this funny thing that I asked Mary to track for me. Every time I teach this class, I am becoming convinced that I re-injure my low back right before, including this time. So who in the room knows the story of Dr. Steve's spine? Cool. So I'll go into detail since none of you know it. So back in 2017, 2018, I decided that I wanted to build a fire pit in my backyard. So I had no idea what it was like to dig lawn out of yards. But I picked a space about half the size of this room and started digging. So I dug it out, leveled it out, and then I thought, well, I'm gonna make it with rocks because I didn't know Luke and I didn't have the skill sets of laying bricks at the time. So I started going to Home Depot and buying bags of rocks. Now those bags of rocks are like 40, 50 pounds, something like that. And you can imagine what roughly, maybe actually 2/3 of this room would take to fill with rocks. So many bags later, I was there on, I think it was actually Memorial Day weekend. And there was someone in the parking lot that said, you know what, it's not fair. We work so hard. And now you're working hard on the weekend, so I'm gonna help you. So he came over and he helped me move the last couple of bags of rocks. The last bag of rocks, I was tired. I was not listening to the things I teach you to do. I reached down to the Home Depot cart like this, tried to pick the rocks up. My back decided it did not appreciate that action. And because there was someone helping me and I'm a man and I'm hard-headed, I continued moving the bag of rocks. Ultimately, that resulted in, that was the end of my L5 disc. In another workshop, we actually put up my x-rays of what my L5 disc looked like, and then what it looked like 18 months later, and it went from almost non-existent to like 90% back. So one of the things people often think is related to back pain is disc issues, yes or yes, right? Yes. We have back pain, we go to the doctor maybe does an x-ray, maybe does an MRI, finds a herniated disc, and then does what? Surgery, maybe pain meds, but if they find the herniated disc, probably some kind of surgery. Now, I didn't take that route. We'll go into the details of that route. I'm not saying it's right or wrong to take that route. When it comes to any healthcare decision, it is incredibly important that you put it through your own worldview questions. And if you're not sure what that means, we can have a separate conversation about it. But see if that fits your worldview, fits the thing they ask you to do. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, you know what to do. And if you're not sure, well, find somebody who has a similar worldview and have that conversation. So I knew for me, surgery, I didn't even go find out if I needed it. I knew what needed to get done to ultimately help my back get better. Now, a year and a half ago was the time I remember the last time I injured it really badly. So I think I was working out, I was lifting some amount of weight. It's usually deadlifts or squats that get me. There was a time I could deadlift like 5-pound weights. I felt super manly because that's all my back could do, but I built that up over time. And I walked around in a back brace for the next couple of weeks. Some of you may have known this, some of you may have not. I went and I took a seminar for 10 days in Idaho on curve correction, a lot of the work we're doing with a lot of you now. And I had to fly out to get to Idaho, right? Guess what seat I got in the plane? The back of the bus. What is the last seat in the plane not do? Not even a little bit. So for 3 hours, no moving, no anything. So we go to get up. The entire row starts complaining about how we couldn't move. I learned this day I should have more conversation with those people sitting around. One was an orthopedic surgeon, one was a physical therapist, one was an occupational or a PT. There was me and then the flight attendant sitting in between us. None of us had a conversation about how this was so terrible for our spines the whole time until the exiting of the plane. Long story short, I re-injured it yesterday morning doing suitcase squats. And yeah, it stunk for the moment, but today I'm probably 90% better than what I was. Now, a few years ago, if that happened, it was many weeks of process for my body. So I haven't even gotten any of the details yet, but stories are important because you might be in the place right now that you get injured and it takes a long time for it to get better. And maybe you've noticed, well, this injury, I've been under care for a period of time, and now I'm responding a little faster. And this time, I heard it yesterday, I went right back and I'm doing basically everything I want to do today. I sometimes learn, so I went lighter in my workout this morning. But I'm able to adjust, I'm able to do everything I want to do, and my pain went from when it happened yesterday, probably an 8 or 9 to like a 1 or 2 today. Because of the things we're going to talk about today. And many of you in this room have that experience of you showed up with a problem, you had some improvement, your problem came back, you had some improvement, your problem came back, had some improvement, whether that's related to your back or anything else. So what's another example of something in your life that did not have an exponential curve up, but was kind of like a little bit of a rocky road for you? Somebody sure. What'd you say?
Chores.
Chores. Every time we clean the kitchen or the house, the kids. Anyway, I could spend the whole rest of the 25 minutes on that. All right, so let's go into some detail.
Chores.
Back pain. So what is the number one predictor? And we're going to go through these a little quick, but the number one predictor of having chronic back pain. So as a definition, so we understand, chronic pain is anything that you've had for more than 6 months. Acute pain is anything you've had for up to 2 or 3 months. And for some reason, they don't talk about the middle of the research. That's just what they state. So chronic pain is pain you've had for more than 6 months. What's the number one predictor of chronic pain? Chronic back pain. Could be.
The job that you have,
Maybe. Well, there's some other thoughts.
Weight,
Maybe your weight,
the way you lift things.
the way you lift things. These are all
range
good
of
things.
motion,
Range of motion,
Band-Aid.
bad bed,
Posture.
maybe posture. The number one predictor of having chronic back pain is you had a single episode of regular back pain. So if you've ever had, or you know anyone who has ever had back pain a single day in their life, the research states they are on a route of chronic back pain unless they do something drastically different about it than what most of our healthcare system tells us to do. So number one predictor of chronic back pain is having back pain. If this clicker works, it's really awesome. One more try. Oh, come on. And what's the number one predictor of an adult having back pain?
being alive.
You're
Oh.
out. That's what I was on.
Oh.
Being safe.
A child, being a child with back pain. Interesting. So we used to think, and I heard this a lot as a kid too, of you're too young to have back pain, knee pain, headaches, whatever, right? So kids don't have pain. Oh, if any of you have been kids before, which you all have, you know that's not true, but our parents used to tell us things like, you're too young for that. So the number one predictor of an adult having back pain was a kid who had back pain. And the number one predictor of an adult now having chronic back pain is having back pain once. That's pretty significant. But also, see, things are important to be plugged in the right spot. Like, I will figure out why this isn't working. Ta-da! We already talked about why. Okay. So how common is it? What percentage of the population do you think is going to suffer from back pain in their life?
90%.
Ooh, okay, we'll go there. You were so close. There we go. 90%. 90%. That's huge. Which means 9 out of every 10 people you know probably are suffering from back pain. And they probably also don't know that this could be a solution to it. And we're going to go over some research of why that is the better solution compared to other things. And 50 to 60% of kids will. It's terrible. 80% to the medical doctor is related to back pain. And it's the #1 cause of job-related disability. So it's the #1 cause of job-related disability. It's also the #1 thing that costs money related to missing work is back pain. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's many, many, many millions of dollars a year of lost productivity and people being able to go to work and get a paycheck because they have back pain. So let's talk about sciatica for a second, because it's called back pain and sciatica. So 15 to 40% of the population are going to experience sciatica at some point in their life. And it may resolve, I put it like that on purpose, within 4 to 6 weeks, but it usually recurs within 12 months. Right? So anybody in the room ever have sciatica? How many people have back pain? Okay, we got it. So now we got everybody. Which probably means almost every single person you know has either had back pain at some point or will have back pain at some point. Now, what does a society say to do about our health when we feel good? When you feel good.
When you feel good.
Yeah. I asked a different question.
Keep going.
Do nothing. Keep going. Or if you've had a little ache or pain, but it went away, what do they tell you to do? Keep on going. What's the #1 predictor of having chronic pain? That you had it once and you just kept on going. And I don't think it's any malice by our healthcare system. It's our healthcare system is literally called an allopathic system. So allopathy by definition is relief of pain. So the entire purpose and basis of our healthcare system and the way they look at almost everything is how do we relieve pain? It's also, and I won't remember the exact terminology it was used. One of my colleagues used this terminology in a seminar I was at over the weekend, the annual coaches forum we were training in. It's biodiminutive, I think. I think that's what he said. But either way, it's looked at as chemistry. So the human body is chemistry. And if the chemistry doesn't work, we treat it with chemistry. So every medication on the planet is chemistry. And I'm not saying there's anything bad or good about any certain medications. But the way our healthcare system, especially in the Western world, looks at it is if the chemistry of your blood isn't right, I'm going to give you something to make it right. Now, for me, worldview-wise, there's a problem. Because if I simply make the chemistry right, but I don't wonder why that was wrong in the first place, what happens? It happens again, it reoccurs. It's why statin drugs that are for high blood pressure and heart disease and things, why they have been on the market for many, many decades. And back in the 90s, they figured out in the research that statin drugs do absolutely nothing to reduce the risk of heart disease and death from heart disease. It actually increases it because we're changing the chemistry to look good, but we're not changing the cause of the problem. We do the same thing with pain for the most part. Not everybody. I realize those sitting in the room, you're already doing something else. And maybe some of you sitting in the room, you're really not liking the conversation I'm having. It's okay. Part of my purpose is to push your paradigm. Because if we never push our paradigm, we never grow. So may resolve within 4 to 6 weeks, but it's definitely going to come back. Interesting. So I already kind of gave a hint of this. So this is what a top view of your vertebrae looks like. This is the spinal cord here. Here are those nerve roots that come out. This is the disc. This is the normal. So what do you notice is different between this picture and this picture? Yeah, that's a good look. You went, right? Yeah, so this is angry. This is the disc pushing out onto the nerve and onto the spinal cord. It's probably going to cause pain. So if you had pain and you had an MRI done and they found that, what would be the logical course? Yeah. Try maybe some steroids, maybe something to try to get the inflammation down. But last course, if that doesn't work, is to go in and cut that out. Remove it. Interesting.
Unless you're too young for it.
where there's that possibility too.
They can see
Fortunately,
that and then go, nah, I'm not gonna do
Fortunately,
anything about it.
I would say there, in that case, they were wise enough to not do it because
Yeah.
it would have said, for so many other issues like that. But you're gonna be
That's
happy with
fine.
where we're going.
Yeah.
If my clicker keeps, there we go. Disc herniations, 80% of people with disc herniations have zero pain. So. Is the disc herniation really the problem? Maybe. But 80% of the people have no pain. Which means in 80% of the cases where they try to treat it with a steroid or some kind of therapy or some kind of surgery as a last resort, and it doesn't work, it's because that wasn't the actual problem. But this is what's called called a falsality of causality. They found something that was there, so it must be its fault. Right? So 80% of people with disc herniations have zero pain. Same research for problems with the meniscus of the knee. We don't have time to go into that. But it's right around 80% of people have tears in their meniscus and have no pain. But then when they have a knee issue and they go and get knee surgery, I guess we're going into that. They have knee surgery and they have their meniscus cleaned up and their pain doesn't go away. And we go, we can't figure out why. Well, we found a problem, but it wasn't the actual cause of your pain. It was still a problem. So this is what arthritis looks like. Remember, it takes 20 to 30 years of arthritis formation for your very first ache, pain, or symptom to show up for most people. Which is why I think in many cases, the number one predictor of having chronic pain is that you had it at all. Because if you had it all, there was already a problem. And it takes 30 years to go from this to this and for a symptom to show up. And by the time it's there, there's irreversible damage. Now, there are things that we can certainly improve upon, but where the bones have changed shape, it's probably not changing. And if it is, it's going to take a long time to do it because it already took 20 or 30 years to get there. So maybe it's the arthritis, maybe it's not. And we've talked about this a little bit, so we're going to zip through this. But anyone who's ever gone to your traditional medical doctor and been treated for back pain, what do they do? Let's just shout some stuff out.
Ibuprofen.
Gabapentin, ibuprofen. Well, we got to have some more. Let's go. Tramadol. What'd you say?
When she suggested what you just said, steroids. and I said, no,
Some
it's
kind of
not.
steroid?
She said, well, you know, we can consider it.
You did consider.
Yeah.
Cortisone shots. Ooh, that's a fun one.
Cortisone is there.
It's not.
So I say cortisone is a fun one because if you ever read the label, what is cortisone approved for?
Feels safer.
Inflammation.
Intramuscular injection. Where do they put it when you have a herniated disc? Right next to the nerve. It's not in the muscle. So it's an off-label use of a medication. So the cortisol or whatever the injectable they use, what it actually does is it goes in and it kills the nerve so you can't feel the pain. Now, anyone who's ever had that done before, how many do they limit you to a year?
2
2 to 3. Why might they limit you to something that's supposed to help you?
Works, it kills it, so
No, it
you
doesn't.
never know.
So it doesn't just kill the nerve, it makes the arthritis happen faster because it actually eats it. Wow.
Mhm.
This is probably, a really long, another discussion.
Okay.
How does the average person even know, try to find out these things? I think a lot of people in this room are here for a purpose, and I have a question.
Yes, I
But
love your question.
How do we even begin to understand how to be our own,
Advocate?
in a sense?
So the simplest and most complicated answer is ask questions.
That's scary.
And it is. And if you ask questions and you receive resistance to answering those questions, then maybe find somebody else to ask the question to. Now, I absolutely don't know everything, not even close to everything. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't have a clue about. It's okay. But if someone asks me a question, I don't know the answer, I will very honestly tell you I don't know the answer. And I'll either find someone who can answer it or I'll try to do the research and figure it out. So to your answer, it's where I was gonna kind of go towards the end of the class, but we'll go there right now, is when we learn information, I believe you have a responsibility to share it with people. Some people are going to be receptive. It's the parable of the seeds, right? So some of the seeds laid on fertile ground and grew. Some of the seeds laid on arid ground and didn't do anything, and some laid on the path and got trampled. We don't know what seed that we're going to plant for that person that might actually grow and give them an opportunity to ask them questions. So it's a little more depth of what you asked, I think. But the way to know is we have to be people that share this information, even if we don't think the other person wants it, because the other options are not really that good, and we're gonna look at the research. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable, it's not easy. But one of my asks of you is always the same, is share what you learn here with someone else. Because we never know what we might share with someone today, it might change or save their life tomorrow. We really don't. So treated by the MD, we talked about this, muscle relaxers, painkillers, they actually have been shown to slow down your healing process. Uses of drugs like epidural injections are not approved by the FDA to be epidural injections into the spine. Interesting. And the most common predictor of surgery is the number of surgeons that live there.
So all the women who've done epidural for,
Yes,
deliveries, yeah.
yes. There's, many of them have have lifetime problems after. So we'll go there super quick. So we'll do this. So if the epidural goes in the correct spot, which is thinner than this because it's cardstock, but it's about the thickness of a piece of tissue paper. If the needle goes in and gets through here, but doesn't go through here, you're probably gonna be okay. Doesn't mean there won't be side effects, but you're probably gonna be okay. If it goes to this level and it goes to this level, which is why if you ever have one of those done, which there are times and places for these things, even though it's not approved for it, and it goes into your spinal cord, it creates something called arachnoiditis. It's as scary as it sounds. Your spinal cord is supposed to be this free flowing kind of, remember when I was a kid, they had these, the wave things that went back and forth all the time, right? That's kind of how your spinal cord is supposed to be able to move through your body. That chemical, if it gets in there, it clumps it all together. It looks like a spider web and is irreversible and going to be excruciating chronic pain for the rest of the life.
You might have cracked the code. Why families don't have more children, it's like limited to like 2-3 children now. Cause back in the day, they would have 7-8 children and be fine. Now they get an epidural to get another baby, and it's worse.
So we have a lot of people right now under care who we're helping with pain related to opioids. So again, I'm not telling you to do or not to do
Yeah.
something. My answer is always the same. Do your research. If you get stuck and don't know where to go, I will help if I can or find someone that can. But for me, in my worldview, bad idea. I would, and I've done it many times. I talked about my own story a little bit. I'm in a back brace. I'm using all my natural remedies and things. There was times I couldn't adjust. I couldn't work out. I couldn't walk around my house because the pain was so bad. But I knew the pain was there to tell me to stop. And if I did all the things and I removed the pain, I wouldn't have stopped.
Yeah.
And I probably would have made the problem worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't have been because I was a bad person or I knew I was doing anything wrong. It's because no one ever told me to do anything different. So back to your question, that's why, you know, informing people this, and your medical doctor probably is going to look at you like you have 3 heads. Right? Like, why aren't you doing the things I'm telling you to do? And they might get upset. And again, medical doctors are not bad people. They're wonderful and amazing people. They're doing the best they have with the tools they have of the allopathic system we've designed. Whether it's the medical doctor or it's the nurse, they're all amazing, lovely people, and I love that they're there to help us in crisis. And sometimes it's the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not. So I got a couple of pieces of research I want to make sure we get to leave you with, so we're going to zip a little faster. Opioid drugs. Ever heard of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So opioids, as the 2022 number, were the result of 109,680 people dying in the United States due to overdoses from the opioids. Now, it's not that they took too many. This is actually people who got them prescribed, took them the way prescribed, had an overdose reaction in their body and died from it. 80% of the people who are prescribed opioid drugs in America today got them because they had back pain. I don't believe it's a coincidence that 80% of the people who show up to their medical doctor with, or 80% of the visits to all medical providers are for back pain. And 80% of the prescribed opioids are for back pain. Now we have another workshop, keep an eye out for, because I absolutely don't have time to go there, called The Prescribed Epidemic. We go into a lot more detail about that. So the most recent numbers show that it's actually 300 plus people die every single day from opioids, and that's about 1 person every 4.8 minutes. Or if I did start a timer, which I meant to, and I'll remember to do it next time, this would have been the 5th or 6th time in life since we started this workshop. So since we started this workshop at 6 o'clock, somewhere around 6 people in the United States have died because they got an opioid. 80% of 6, I think, is 5. So if those 6 people knew that chiropractic was an option and an opportunity, then maybe they wouldn't have taken the opioid in the first place, and they might still be alive. That's why sharing the information you learned here is so vitally important. I am recording tonight. I am gonna put it up online. There's only so many people I can individually reach, but by each of you sharing with 1, 2, or 3 people, we took the 20 or so of you in the room and maybe we just affected 100 lives. I'm not sure. And again, the opioid, the prescribed epidemic workshop, we dig way into that, but we now have 4 more minutes and I have a couple things I want to make sure I go to. So people already using opioids that utilize chiropractic care are 55% less likely to fill the bottle. If you can't fill it, you can't take it. So if those 80%, whatever 80% of 110,000 is, simply got to chiropractic because someone told them to go get adjusted and actually went, they would never have filled the bottle. And that would really be the solution, a big part of the solution to the opioid epidemic we have in the country. Because the chiropractic adjustment targets the exact same neurologic pathways and the centers of the brain that the opioid does, and affects and breaks the pain cycles in the body. The difference is it has no negative side effects, besides maybe having a little bit of achiness or discomfort after, or maybe a little more than a little, but achiness and discomfort after the adjustment. Same exact neurologic pathway, completely safe. And to this day, they've never tracked one person dying from getting adjusted. They looked at over 10 million adjustments. The number one side effect, or the actually only side effect, is 2 people in 10 million had a rib broken. And I think 30 or 40 had some achiness afterwards. But how many people out there, well-meaning people, say, I'll never let a chiropractor touch me, I'd rather have surgery first. I'd rather have this opioid first. I'd rather go do this thing with my therapist. I'm not saying anything's wrong with physical therapy. The reason I have a functional arm after I broke a snowboarding is physical therapy. Properly applied is what I'm saying. Properly apply what's there, you get good results. Don't properly apply it, we get an epidemic like we have right now related to pain and opioids. So failed back surgery syndrome, we're gonna zip over this really, really fast because now I have 3 more minutes. This is actually a diagnosis you get now when you have a back surgery and it doesn't work. Yeah, we're gonna go there. Do you know what the definition of a successful back surgery is?
You can move.
Never heard of it. We might go over on time. The literal definition. So if you end up, or you know someone who's on the list to have a surgery done for their spine, they're going to be told they have something like a 70% success rate. Here's what success rate means. I'm going to use my words. We didn't mess it up bad enough that we had to do it a second time.
Oh.
It doesn't mean they're better.
Mhm.
It might mean they're worse. Maybe something got left that they had to go remove, because unfortunately that does happen sometimes. But the literal definition in the research of a successful spinal surgery is you didn't have to do a follow-up one because we messed something up first. So if you're a person who has chronic pain every single day, you've tried the physical therapy, you've tried the injectables, you've tried the opioids, and you're told your last response to surgery has 70% success rate, what do you do? Absolutely, because you don't know that they've used language to change success rate just means you probably won't have to have it. That's all it means. It's insanity. So this was a study that came out in 2016. Clearly, it didn't really actually do what it said it was going to do. So when this was published, they actually put this up and they said this is the end of fusion surgeries as we know it, because a 36-year study following 300 patients, this is published in the New England Medical Journal. That's kind of one of the top ones on the planet, by the way. The New England Medical Journal states there is, what's that say? Zero benefit from any form of spinal fusion surgery, both 2 and 5 years later. But you're told you have a 70% success rate. They don't bother to tell you about this research. Possibly they don't know. To be totally honest, they don't know. There are a lot of people out there that say things like chiropractic has no science and research behind it. You just proved you're choosing to be ignorant to the fact that there are thousands upon thousands of research articles that all prove exactly what we do and what we're claiming to be true. But if you don't look at it, well, it doesn't exist. Interesting. So if they don't know that research, then they're doing what they think is the best thing for you. I guarantee you right up, there's many multiple hospitals right around us, guarantee a bunch of those surgeries happen today. And I hope and pray that those people had good results from it. But the research is probably. I have a neighbor, I'm at time, who for 10 years has asked my advice and done none of it. He's had 3 or 4 spinal surgeries. He's had both his hips replaced. He went from being able to do his own yard work very simply and very easily to having to pay somebody to do it. To his most recent hip replacement, he's now going around the neighborhood in a walker. But he likes to ask my advice. And maybe one day he'll do something about it. Who knows?
He needs to go here.
That's what I tell him every time. I said, you know what? If I'm your neighbor and that's too close, go see my colleague. But don't keep doing the things that aren't working. Okay, we're at time. This is an interesting one. This is where we're gonna end. Most disc herniations will resolve if you remove the cause. What is the only non-instant traumatic cause of disc herniations? Subluxations. You might want to call it something else. The only way a disc breaks down is if you either like a car accident or like I did that lifting injury and I instantly overloaded the disc and it failed because quite honestly, I'd probably lifted 140-pound bags before that day. Or you take a joint and you cause a subluxation, which twists the disc, which the disc normally has these interlocking fibers like a suspension bridge. And you spread them out over time and then gravity is pushing down on it. Then over time, it turns into a disc herniation. So if most disc herniations will resolve if you remove the causative factor, what would be the logical conclusion that everyone with a disc herniation should do?
See, chiropractor.
That's not my opinion, that's the research. And it may take a long time. One more story, and I know we're at time, but one more story of a patient during mid-COVID, he was told your only option is spinal surgery. Well, one of the blessings of COVID is it took a long time to do anything. So he kept coming in very on track, never missing appointments. If he had to reschedule, he always came in. And somewhere around 12 to 18 months later, I don't remember the exact date, he was going to his appointment right before the surgery. And he just kind of commented to the surgeon, he goes, you know, I haven't taken my painkillers in like 3 months. He goes, then why are you in my office? Because you told me to have the surgery, it was my only chance. They redid his MRIs, they canceled the surgery on the spot, and 3 years later, he's never had that surgery. It takes time to heal. Here we go, we're gonna zip past that, and that, and that, and we're gonna end there. This stresses me out when people do that, so I'm sorry, I got excited. So the final thought of the day is, have you more faith in a knife or a spoonful of medicine than the power that animates the living? The only thing the chiropractic adjustment does, it utilizes the power that made your body to help it heal. If you block electrical flow or nerve flow, or you squish down on a disc because the joint is out of place from whatever happened, your body breaks down faster. If you restore it, it heals every single time. It might, in this patient's case I talked about, it took 18 months. In my case, is 18 months, and then occasionally I re-injure it. But this time around, a day later, I'm almost better, whereas 2 years ago, it took me 2 weeks to be able to really function. Whatever the thing is, the longer we choose to be like Milo, and put that cow on our shoulders, please don't put a cow on your shoulders, but be persistent with the actions that we know are gonna help us accomplish the goal, the better. It's why one of our primary policies is you show up to workshops and learn how to be healthy, because if you don't know, you don't know. And it's also that there are only kept appointments, because missing an appointment is missing your opportunity to potentially the adjustment that could save your life, so you don't end up on one of these other routes. So where I'd like to end the evening, you all have cards. I want you to write on the card something you learned from tonight on the line side. If you have 2 line sides, we can do both. If you, there we go, cool. On the back of the card, I want you to write the name of the person you're going to share with. In 2.5 weeks from, not even 2.5 weeks, just over 2 weeks from today, June 5th, is our next what's called Patient Appreciation. What we do on Patient Appreciation Day is we throw a party to celebrate everyone choosing to engage in their health. And we want to make it incredibly simple for those you love and care about to just simply get checked. So we have 11 new patient spots available on that day. We're doing the entirety of the new patient exam, x-rays, and report for only $50 instead of $235. So the person you write down, if everyone in the room shares with somebody, there's not enough appointment spots. And I firmly believe that I can't outgive the giver, but I can certainly try. So if we fill all those spots, I'll probably open up a couple of them. But people learning the opportunity to do something different could be the thing that saves your life. And as soon as you write those things down, you are free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.